Good morning everyone, here we are in our last week of home learning. So this week we're looking at two-step word problems. So last week we were looking at bar modelling and how we would have used a bar to help support work out what we need to do to solve a problem. The problems we look at this week are where you have to do two separate calculations. So let's have a look and do some together. The ones today, the bars have been drawn for us, so we just need to use them to help our calculation. There are 26 boys and 19 girls in a hall. 7 children leave the hall. A, how many children are there in the hall at first? And B, how many children are there in the hall at the end? So let's not even think about B yet. Let's just focus on A. How many children are there in the hall at first? So go back to the problem and have a look. There are 26 boys and 19 girls in a hall. Now we're not comparing boys and girls, we're adding them together. So we've got one long bar drawn here and they've labelled what we know, which is what we know is really important. So we've got boys and girls, and I'm going to go one step further and actually write boys on that bar, part of the bar, and girls on that part of the bar, so we know what those parts represent. And then the question mark tells us what we need to work out. So we know that in a situation like this, to find the whole amount, we add them together. So the calculation is 26 add 19 is 45, which gives us the answer to the first part of the question. There are 45 children in the hall at first. Okay, now what you might want to do is tick the first bit off to say that you've done it, and then we can move on. How many children are there in the hall at the end? So this time the bar looks a little bit different. Now, if you find it a little bit tricky to draw this bit of the bar disappearing, you could just draw it on the main bar. Maybe put some lines to say that you're getting rid of it if you want to. Bars do not always have to look the same. Remember, we draw the bar to help us work out what to do. Okay, let's have a look. So, how many children are in the hall at the end? Well, we know how many there are at first. We know it because we've just worked it out. So, the whole bar is 45 children. Then, 7 of them leave. So we've got a little part of the bar. So the whole bar is all the children. This is the children who leave. And this is the children left at the end. Okay, so to do this calculation, to get the question mark, which is this bar, we need to do 45 take away 7, which leaves 38. There are 38 children in the hall at the end. Okay, so that's an example for us. Let's have a look at one where we need to do some of the work. The bar model is still going to be drawn for us, and we can just use it to help us. Okay, let's read the question first. Farah saves £341. Ella saves £279 more than Farah. I'm just going to underline that more, because that might help us in a minute. A, how much does Ella save? And B, how much do they save altogether? So this time we're going to use the same bar model to help us solve the problem. So let's get a little bit closer. Let's have a look. Okay, so how much does Ella save is the first question. Well, here's our bar. And this time we've got a bar for each of the children because we're comparing how much they've got. We're not adding it together yet. So we've got one bar for Farah and one bar for Ella. What do we know? Well, we know, so they've drawn the bar for us. We now need to populate it to put in the numbers that we know. So do we know how much Farah saves? Yes, £341. So we're going to put that in there. Do we know how much Ella saves? No, that's what we want to find out. So this is going to be the bit that we're trying to work out. We do know, though, how much more than Farah Ella saves. So we do know the difference between the two bars is going to be £279. We don't know how much they save altogether. We'll kind of come to that at the end. So how much does Ella save? Well, this is Ella's bar. So we're going to need to add together this bar and this difference. So we're going to do 341 add 279. So let's do that calculation then. Could you pause for me and get your equipment or your paper or whiteboard and work out for me 341 add 279, and then unpause to check your answer against mine. Okay, so I drew the calculation. I drew 341, 279, and then I added together starting with the ones, and I moved over by regrouping any of the sets of 10 to get 620. So hopefully you got 620 as well. Let's write that in. So we can write that in. Ella saved £620, which means we can also write 620 here on our bar model. Okay, part B then, let's have a look. So it says, how much do they save all together? Now we can do this now because we know how much Ella saved. So if we know that Farah saved £341 and Ella saved £620, we can work out the total by adding them together. So we need to do 341 add 620. Could you pause the video and solve that calculation for me? Here's my calculation. I used just the abstract written method today, and I worked out that the answer was £961. So I hope you did too, which means they saved £961 altogether. And that's our problem solved. Okay, let's have a look at another one. There are 22 boys and 16 girls in Ruby's music class. There are 5 more children in Hardeep's music class than in Ruby's music class. I've underlined more there because we're going to need that later. Let's look at part A. How many children are there in Ruby's music class? So part A, they've drawn the bar for us. Can you think for me? You don't need to pause, but have a little think. We've got a bar. We've got our 2 parts for Ruby's music class. I'm going to put Ruby here, or Ruby's class, so that we know that that's what this bar represents. Which numbers am I going to put in here? Have a little think. Hopefully you said this is the bigger part, so that's going to be the boys, and I'm going to write boys on there, and I would encourage you to do that too when you do your bars. This part represents the girls, and there are 16 of them. Okay, so how do we work out how many there are altogether? Can you pause the video, tell me what calculation you're going to do, and then work out the answer for me, and then unpause to check your answer against mine. Hopefully you worked out that you had to add the numbers together to get the total, and 22 at 16 is 38. There are 38 children in Ruby's music class. Let's have a look at part B then. So we normally, for part B, you need to use something you worked out in part A to help you. So let's have a look. How many children are there in Hardeep's music class? So this time we're comparing the 2 classes. So we've got 2 bars, Hardeep's bar, which is longer because there are more children, and Ruby's class, which is a little bit shorter. So what do we already know? Well, we already know how many children are in Ruby's music class because we worked that out, 38. And we know that there are 5 more because that's in the original question. 5 more, so the difference is 5. So what will we do then to work out Hardeep? Could you pause, work out the calculation for me and tell me how many children you think are in Hardeep's music class, and unpause to compare with mine. Right, okay, there were 43 children in Hardeep's music class. We had to add together 38 and 5. Let's have a look at the next one then. We've got a couple more to do together before you go and do your own today. Question 4. Peter has 264 English and French stamps all together. That word gives me a little bit of a clue. I'm going to underline that. 93 stamps are French stamps. A, how many English stamps does Peter have? And B, how many more English stamps than French stamps does Peter have? Okay, let's not worry about B for a minute. Let's look at A. How many English stamps does Peter have? Because we're looking at English stamps and French stamps, we're not comparing them. We're using them to work out how many English stamps. So this whole bar represents the stamps. Okay, and he's got more English stamps than French stamps because we've got 264 altogether and only 93 are French. So this part is English stamps. Don't worry too much if you're not sure which one's which, because it won't actually affect your calculation. And this one's French stamps. Okay, what do we know? We know how many stamps he's got altogether. He's got 264, so we can put that in. And we know that 93 of them are French. So all we've done there is a bit like reading comprehension, isn't it? Is we've looked at the question and we've just put in the information we know. Now, hopefully you can see what calculation we need to do to work out this question mark. It's a bit different to the one we did last time, because last time we were finding the total. This time we've got the total. What calculation do you think we need to do? Hopefully you've spotted that you need to take the total and take away the 93. So we have to do 264, take away 93. Could you pause the video and do that calculation for me, and then unpause to go through the answers? Okay, you can see my calculation there. So I drew 264. I then took away 93, starting with my ones. I used a different colour just to make it a bit clearer, and I did have to regroup one of those hundreds. But I got the answer 171, so I hope you did too. Peter has 171 English stamps. Let's have a look at part B then. Right, we now need to work out how many more English stamps than French stamps does Peter have. So let's have a look. He's got more English stamps, so I'm going to write on this bar English and this one French. Sometimes you could see it written at the side. If it's not written anywhere, I really suggest you try and label it for me or for you, so you can work out what you need to do. Okay, what do we already know? Well, we know how many English stamps Peter's got. We worked it out just a minute ago, 171. And we don't know how many more, that's what we've got to work out, but we do know that he's got 93 French stamps, so we can put that in. So we've got 171 and 93, and we need to calculate the difference. Now, anytime you hear the word difference, it's where we do a subtraction. So that's our little clue there. And we can see, can't we, that actually you're going to need to take the bigger bar and take away the smaller bar to work out the question mark. So the calculation we're doing here is 171, take away 93. Could you pause your video and solve that calculation for me, please? Okay, hopefully you worked out that Peter has 78 more English stamps than French stamps. We've got one more today before you have your practice. So let's have a look at this one. I'll read the question first and then we'll solve it. Jack has 345 marbles. He gives Ty 78 marbles. Now, Jack has 183 blue marbles and some red marbles. How many red marbles does Jack have left? Right, that's quite a lot of reading, isn't it? So let's just have a look and see what we need to do. This one, you will notice, is a bit different because it hasn't split the question into A and B. But it has split up the bar for us, so we can use the scaffolding here to help us. Right, let's have a look. So first of all, it's going to suggest that we first find the number of marbles Jack has left. Then we'll worry about how many were red. Okay, so let's work about how many marbles first. Jack has 345 marbles. He gives Ty 78 marbles. So he started with 345 marbles and he's given 78 of them to Ty. So how many has he got left? Could you pause the video, work out what calculation you need to do and find the answer, and then unpause to compare with mine? Okay, hopefully you have worked out that Jack has 267 marbles left. Okay, so now we can work out how many of those are red. So now our bars, a new bar for a new part of the question, represents Jack's marbles. So I'm going to put Jack here. We know he's got 267 marbles left because we've just worked that out. And we know, let's go back to our question, Now Jack has 183 blue marbles and some red marbles. So if we say that this is blue and this is red, we know that he's got 183 blue marbles. Right, hopefully by labelling the bar model, and all we did there was take the information and put it onto the bar, hopefully we now can see what calculation we need to do. Could you pause your video and work out the answer for me and then unpause to compare it with mine? Right, there we have it. Hopefully you worked out that Jack has 84 red marbles left. Okay, over to you then. Now that's quite a lot we've done together. The good news is that on your practice today, the bars have been drawn for you. So do exactly what we've been doing in our practice. Label your bars. Sometimes it's done for you. Label the bars. What do the different parts of the bar represent? Then pop in the numbers and then work out the calculation. You've only got 2 to do because we've had quite a long introduction today. I am going to read through the problems for you as well so that the reading won't cause a problem for you. So your first problem reads like this. Mr. Patel has 78 boxes of bananas and 130 boxes of oranges. He sells some boxes of oranges. He has 159 boxes of bananas and oranges left. A. How many boxes of bananas and oranges does Mr. Patel have at first? And B. How many boxes of oranges does Mr. Patel sell? So that's your first one. And then number 2. Farah has 356 stickers in her collection. Ruby has 192 more stickers than Farah. A. How many stickers does Ruby have? B. How many stickers do they have altogether? Okay, so you've got those 2 to do then. So that's your work for today. If you have time left at the end of the lesson, remember you can always practice your addition and subtraction or go on to TTRS and practice your times tables. And I'll come back tomorrow with your answers.